All right, let's talk about the most uncomfortable party you could ever imagine. Harold Pinter's The Birthday Party. Today we're going to dive into both the original play and its absolutely chilling film version to figure out how a simple celebration spirals into a total nightmare.
I mean, just think about that for a second. The one day of the year that's supposed to be all about you, your celebration, suddenly turns into a psychological trap. That is the terrifying idea right at the heart of this story.
So let's set the scene. The setup is so simple. And honestly, that's exactly where the story's genius really begins.
Okay, so we meet Stanley. He's this guy who's basically hiding from, well, we never really find out what. He's living this quiet, kind of dead-end life in a boarding house by the sea until, bam, two sharply dressed strangers show up. And just like that, this totally boring setting becomes a pressure cooker of dread.
To really get what makes The Birthday Party so deeply unsettling, you've got to understand the mind of the man who wrote it, Harold Pinter. He created this incredibly unique style, and once you see the tools he uses, you start to see the menace everywhere.
And this right here, this is the key. Comedy of menace. It sounds like a total contradiction, doesn't it? But that's Pinter's magic. He makes you laugh 1 second and then feel this deep, creeping dread the next. He's a master at finding the horror that's lurking just under the surface of a totally normal conversation.
See, in Pinter's world, the threat isn't some monster hiding in a closet. Nope. It's the new house guest whose real motives are never, ever clear. The fear comes from dialogue that feels both hilarious and incredibly aggressive at the same time. He basically turns a simple chat over a cup of tea into a full-blown psychological war.
Now here's something people get wrong all the time. They tend to lump Pinter in with absurdist theater, but his focus is actually pretty different. He isn't trying to say that life is meaningless. He's showing us how meaning itself gets twisted and manipulated by power. The violence in his work isn't physical, it's psychological, and it's happening right there in the open.
And that brings us to the famous, or maybe infamous, Pinteresque pause. In his plays, silence is a weapon. It's what isn't being said that carries all the weight. A pause can be a threat, a way to dodge a question, or a quiet admission of defeat. It's a whole language spoken without a single word.
Okay, so we've got our Pinteresque toolkit. Now let's jump into the film itself. How did the director, William Friedkin, take all this tension that was designed for a stage and turn it into a cinematic nightmare?
Well, Friedkin uses the camera as its own instrument of menace. The lighting is all murky and dim. The rooms feel suffocatingly small. He shoves the camera right up in Stanley's face, forcing us to be a part of his breakdown. Then he'll use these overhead shots that make the characters look like rats in a trap. Seriously, every single shot is designed to make you feel just as cornered as Stanley does.
And this is it. This is the moment where all that tension finally just boils over. The so-called birthday party completely dissolves into this brutal interrogation. But the weapons aren't fists, they're words.
Goldberg and McCann start bombarding Stanley with questions that sound like jokes or maybe some bizarre philosophical riddles. On the surface, it's just absurd, right? This is the comedy part of the menace. But the real goal here has nothing to do with getting an answer.
They just keep hitting him with contradictions, with pure nonsense. The sheer speed and illogical nature of the questions are designed to do one thing: break his mind. They're trying to shatter his sense of reality, his sense of self. It's a psychological assault disguised as a conversation.
And the effect is, well, it's devastating. Under this relentless verbal attack, Stanley just completely unravels. He can't answer, he can't even think. He can't be the person he was anymore. They literally erase his identity by questioning it into oblivion.
Pinter's use of simple props is just brilliant, and the newspaper is a fantastic example. At the start of the story, like you see here, it's all about stability, his routine, his one little connection to the outside world. But then, as the interrogation shatters his mind, the paper itself gets torn into strips. What a perfect visual for the fracturing of truth. And by the end, it's just hidden away, a symbol for a reality that's now completely broken and concealed.
So, what is all this really about? Is it just a story about a very, very strange birthday party? Or is it something much, much bigger? Let's unpack some of the powerful interpretations.
A lot of critics see this play as an allegory for the individual versus the system. You've got Stanley, who could be anyone, who doesn't quite fit in, who resists authority. Then you have Goldberg and McCann, and they're the enforcers, sent by that authority to either bring the nonconformist back in line or destroy him. And the boarding house, his supposed safe haven, it's totally useless against them.
And you know, this isn't just some academic theory. Pinter himself was deeply political. In his Nobel Prize acceptance speech, he talked at length about how powerful states manipulate truth to keep control. You can absolutely see the birthday party as a dramatic, terrifying version of that exact process.
Stanley's struggle really places him in a classic literary tradition. You know, he's like Joseph K. from Kafka's The Trial, accused of a crime he can't even comprehend. And he's like Winston Smith from 1984, having his identity systematically dismantled by a power he can't possibly fight. He's the modern individual, trapped by forces he can't even see.
So why? Why does a story written over 60 years ago still feel so powerful, so genuinely disturbing? What gives it this kind of enduring menace?
I think ultimately the genius of the birthday party is how it shows us that true menace isn't always obvious. It's not some monster or a ghost. It can be found in a quiet room, in a casual conversation, in the unspoken pressure to just conform. The true horror is hiding in the familiar.
The story doesn't give us any easy answers about who Goldberg and McCann really are or what Stanley actually did. Instead, it turns the question back on us, and it forces us to look for those same invisible systems of control and that pressure to conform in our own world. Now that is a chilling thought to end on.